If you listen to Sirius XM today like I did, then you listen to a lot of Danny Cannell crying, which I did.
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back into Locked On Bama. Luke Robinson, that's me, Jimmy Stein, that's him. This episode is brought to you by Gametime, and thank you for making us your first listen every single day. You guys are the absolute best. We love you so much. Thanks for everybody tuning in recently, too. I mean, we've gotten a lot of traction. We appreciate that. Jimmy took a shot at Danny Cannell coming in because, really, he's easy to dislike. And he's usually pretty smarmy. And just today on the radio, he was just crestfallen. And I don't use that word very often, but I think it's appropriate here. And, frankly, I'm like, Danny, first of all, in 93, Florida State got in over a West Virginia team that was undefeated. How'd you feel about that? I think he was actually on that team. Is he going to return that ring? Sometimes things happen. And here's the other thing. It's not a travesty. For the millionth time, I've seen Booger McFarland, who, goodness gracious, why is he even talking college football anymore? He was very difficult to listen to about pro football. College football is even worse. But everybody, this is just all for those kids work their butts off. Well, all the kids work their butts off. And I mean, is it, when somebody misses a field goal or has a fumble or whatever, it's part of it. And the other thing is, it's not a travesty that any of the group got left in or got put out. If you had said Georgia got in and Florida State got in, you know what? Everybody'd go, okay, this is awful and it's a travesty. But at the same time, is it really? Because Georgia really has been the best team for the last 3 years. And Florida State was undefeated Power 5. But Alabama has a much better resume. They have a much better win. Florida State's best win is Alabama's third best win. So what I'm saying is there's a way to spin this for everybody. So I had somebody tell me today that was very anti-Alabama say, there's 100 ways to spin this. I said, if there's 100 ways to spin it, it's not a tragedy. It'd be a tragedy if there was just one way to do this. And there's not one way to do this.
This is the system that everybody agreed to. It's not a perfect system, but this is the system that everyone agreed to. When I mean everyone, this is the system that Florida State agreed to. It's the system that the ACC agreed to. We all signed up for this. And in fact, some of the irony is spearheaded by the SEC, they tried to go to the 12-team playoff for this year, and it was blocked. By who? The ACC and their friends. Or we would have a 12-team playoff. So that's on them. This is the system. And when you have a 4-team system and you have 6 teams, 6, arguably more, but 6 teams that earned the spots, 6 teams earned the spots, including Alabama, 2 are going to get left out and 2 are going to be really, really, really upset. But if Alabama had been left out, I think Alabama and Alabama fans would be really, really upset. Hopefully wouldn't be acting like some of the Florida State fans and the Florida State government is acting today. Hopefully not. But, hey, this is the system everyone agreed to. Like Luke said about the NFL, they have a playoff system too, and there are occasional injustices. For instance, the winner of the NFC South this season may very well have a worse record than a team trying to get in as a wild card that does not. I hope the legislatures won't get involved if that happens. This is the system that the NFL itself and all of the teams voted for and designed. So this was it. When you have a 4-team playoff, there was always the threat that more than 4 teams would earn inclusion.
Yeah, all the bloviating from DeSantis and Donald Trump, who used it to take a shot at DeSantis. Y'all give me a break. Y'all go do something. Fix something. There's a lot to fix. Fix it. Don't worry. This isn't broken that bad. Everybody's like, this system is so broken. Some of the people just in tears about this. Danny Cannell, I get, because he hates the SEC and he loves Florida State. This was a double whammy for him. Okay, so
What are they
I
going to
get it.
say when Florida State loses by 28 to Georgia? If let's say that happens, and I'm not. Who knows?
I know what they're going to say.
We'll make predictions when we get closer. Let's say they lose to Georgia 38-7. What are they going to say?
I know what they're going to say. They're going to say, "Well, it didn't matter."
It doesn't matter. They're going to say
but those same people have no problem saying, well, that Utah team beat Alabama's butt in 2008. They have no problem saying that in the Sugar Bowl that didn't matter. I mean, but the other thing.
Well, upsets happen. I mean, upsets happen. Okay, so go upset Georgia.
Well, here's the other thing, Jimmy.
If you deserve to be in the playoff, then you should play head-to-head with Georgia. Then the game should be close. The game, if you deserve to be in the playoff, that game should be close. So let's see.
And as several of our friends, and I think we have pointed out, if we had not played Texas in week 2, if we had played Miami of Ohio and we had the same schedule, we're unquestioned the number 1 team. But we played a team that happens to be number 3 in the playoffs. FSU's best win is a team that is in the teens in rankings, and it happens to be 3rd place in the same division Alabama's in, a team that Alabama also beat. And again, I'm not taking shots at FSU because I'm going to tell you something. Jordan Travis has been an absolute man about this. I mean, he has manned up. He has been so cool. He gave well wishes to Jalen Milroe. I tell you what, if it didn't seem like pandering, I would wish that somebody associated with Alabama would be like, we want Jordan Travis to come as our guest to the game. That would almost be pandering and maybe looked at as rubbing his nose in it. But I would prefer. I wish we'd say, hey, Jordan, we want you on our side, bro. This isn't Alabama versus Texas. That's another thing. If Oregon had beaten Washington and Georgia had beaten Alabama, Oregon and Texas would be in. The committee made this clear by putting Texas number 3. So, and again, there's not enough angst about Michigan cheating on the field institutionally and still getting in. Again, I'm willing to bypass it and just say, screw it. I wanted Michigan to get in more trouble. I really did, well before I knew the outcome of this. At the same time, I'm like, it's over. Nothing's going to happen. And the NCAA is scrotumless. I don't know what else to say other than that. Is that a word? Can I say that?
Well, I think it's always a word when people know what you mean. Right. That makes it a word. Well, I know what you mean, so that counts.
And so I think the Michigan thing needs more talking about. And again, I'm fine playing them. I don't care, whatever. But I'm saying if you're going to get on to us, Alabama didn't do anything. And everybody's like, well, Nick Saban's, trying to make his case. What do you want him to do? Say, guys, we put up a good fight. We just don't deserve to be there. If he said that, we would fire him as great as he is. That would be stupid. So
it's his job. He did his job, advocating for his team. And by the way, before the playoffs started, Mike Norvell, he advocated for his team, as did Florida State, and that's 100% fine. Again, I do feel bad for Florida State's players, and I'm openly, of course, admit Florida State deserves to be in. But 6 teams deserved to be in, and there's room
maybe
for
7.
4. So which 2 are you going to exclude? Maybe 7. Maybe 7. Yeah, Ohio State, even Oregon. I mean, Oregon's only losses were to a team in the field. That doesn't mean if Washington wins and they're the national champs and they're number 1, you could argue, gosh, Oregon maybe was top 4. All that proves is that Oregon's not number 1. So yeah, maybe 8 teams deserve to be in. But there's only room for 4. And I think they excluded the right teams under all the circumstances. And now we'll find out what happens.
And we're going to talk about Alabama embracing the villainy here in just a minute. But one other note, and you've pointed this out, that if everybody keeps saying Florida State beat every team on their schedule, you may not like their 55th ranked schedule. They beat everybody. So did Liberty. And that's crazy. That's apples to oranges. I feel like the 55th ranked schedule to the 3rd ranked schedule is or 5th ranked is apples to oranges. I mean,
yeah, and it's not apples to oranges because Liberty's not in because they didn't beat enough good teams. They didn't beat enough good teams. That's partially why Florida State's not in. Although I think the committee and media should make a bigger deal of that. Really, no one talks about it. All they talk about is Jordan Travis, but they should be talking about the Florida State schedule was ranked 55th. That's not good. That's not good. There's only 65 Power 5 teams.
All right, Jimmy, listen, hey, one thing that I'm glad we have to worry about, if you want to go to the Rose Bowl, and I know some people that are going, I'm not going to go to the Rose Bowl, but you can bet your bottom dollar I'll be going to Houston. And if I do go to Houston, or if you do go to the Rose Bowl, then you want to check out Gametime. Use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off using the Gametime app. Download the Gametime app today. You shouldn't have to worry about when buying your tickets for the next big event. Gametime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all sports, music, comedy, theater events near you. Hey, look, I love Nate Barghese. I'd love to go check him out using the Gametime app. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the best price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. They got everything you want. Again, theater, sports, comedy, whatever. Go to the Gametime app, download that mother, and then you can use it, and you'll love it. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege. That's all one word for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So, Jimmy, one thing I think Alabama's got to do at this point, I mean, I've done my good deed for the day, several good deeds. I have tweeted incessantly. I called into a show called the Auburn Blitz, which is done by some friends of mine who were just, I mean, they were sort of despondent, like they can't believe it. This is one of the biggest tragedies ever in American history, Hindenburg-esque. And I said, look, I get it. I get that people don't want Alabama. I get that. But it's not a tragedy. It's not. And nobody could accept that. It's a Power 5 team going undefeated shit. And then I was like, well, if again, going back to what we said, a Power 5 team going undefeated, but if they have the 55th ranked schedule, what's the big deal? What's the big difference between them and Liberty? I mean, what is the big difference? Yeah. And you know, Liberty went and didn't they beat Arkansas last year? I mean, they beaten a Power 5. It wasn't last year, but I mean, I'm just saying – it just gets kind of silly to make it sound like this is the worst thing that's ever happened in American history.
Why would the other SEC fans and programs want the precedent set that the SEC's left out?
I can tell you the answer to that because they want to pretend this is exactly what they want. And I've seen a lot of Auburn people say, and a lot of other folks say from several other SEC schools. By the way, everybody in the SEC has skeletons in their closet. Everybody in college football probably does. And I've seen a lot of teams be like, this really hurts the integrity. I'm like, oh, really? We've all hired coaches with checkered past and show causes. And I mean, we threw integrity out when we said Michigan's going to be in this thing ranked number 1 with no problem at all, even though they cheated on the field. So quit talking to me about that. Let's compare resumes. And again, I would have no problem if somebody had said, you know, I looked at Florida State's resume, and yes, they had the 55th ranked schedule, and Alabama's was 5th. But I weigh the undefeatedness a little more than what Alabama did. I disagree, but I could see their point. And that's what I have a problem with the Danny Cannells and the Dusty Dvorak's and the Booger McFarlands and the Nicole Auerbachs. They're like, I just keep coming back to being undefeated. And if that's the case, then we should have let Boise in a few years ago. We should have let
Liberty.
Liberty in. And just but that's not what this is about. You also have to use some common sense. And if Alabama's resume is that much better, I think that can put them over the top. And again, I would have had no problem if Alabama had gotten in over Texas, even though the head-to-head, some people just can't get that out of their minds. Like head-to-head, that's it. That's the only thing.
The BCS, under the old BCS system that we used for years to determine the national championship, we used the BCS system. The BCS system put Alabama in and Texas out.
And who was 4 in that? Was that it was FSU 4, wasn't it?
FSU was 4. Texas was 5.
And again, far be it from me to try and jump on the woe is Georgia bandwagon, especially with some of the shots we've taken from some Georgia folks here recently. But I believe Georgia is one of the top 4 teams in the country. If you would put Georgia in, I would understand it. I would understand it.
I agree that they're one of the top 4. Here's another point that I saw that's just the height of absurdity. Jerry Palm, who I do like, I think Jerry Palm does a good job. He tweeted that as long as we have a committee, by the way, he wanted Florida State in, not Alabama, Jerry Palm, who does crunch numbers, and he's a playoff guru along with the NCAA basketball tournament guru. He said that as long as we have a committee, we're always going to have humans with biases and prejudices that make decisions, and the decisions are biased and stuff. And I guess that's why he was saying Alabama got in, because the committee was biased. So I asked him on Twitter, because I don't know him. I asked him on Twitter, I'm like, Jerry, that's an interesting take. And if I understand what you're saying, I just have a question for you. How come the BCS computers have Alabama third? The BCS computer, just the computers that used to determine the BCS, those computers, when you do the average of where the computers have, they had Alabama third and in the field. Are the computers biased too? I mean, that shows how just absurd people are getting. Normally rational, sane, smart people lost their minds over this. And again, I get back to strength of schedule. It boggles my mind that strength of schedule isn't a bigger deal when it comes to this. And hey, if I'm Greg Byrne, I'm going to write an article soon. No one will care, but I'm going to write an article soon that's going to call on Alabama to cancel Notre Dame, cancel Ohio State. The committee has spoken. The committee made it really clear. Cancel Florida State. That's right. The committee made it very clear that strength of schedule does not matter. And I would like my favorite team, Alabama, to be in the playoff every year, or most years, or as many times as possible. So don't add these games to your schedule that add to your strength of schedule, but could possibly cost you a win. It makes no sense. And if you say, well, people don't come to these games when we play Ball State, I will. I'll be there.
Not only that, I don't care if anybody goes to Mercer, but I would like to go to Houston to play for a national championship. So
boom,
boom. And again, I don't think the Michigan thing is getting enough play. I feel like that is that's just something that look, I wouldn't complain about it if everybody didn't make it sound like this is an integrity to the sport issue. If it's an integrity to the sport issue, the Michigan thing's got to count. And everybody's got their own flaw, and every system has its flaws. Again, you keep hearing, well, Division 1AA does it better. I don't even know how that works. I mean, first of all, they don't have as many teams as we do, so it's a little bit easier to determine. I'm a big proponent of the AHSA. Their playoff system is kind of screwed up, but we all take it. And you know why it's kind of screwed up? Because a lot of it is dependent on logistics, because they don't want to make it where somebody, if the seating was done correctly, they don't want to make it where somebody from Huntsville has to go to Mobile on a Friday night and get back Sunday morning. And I understand that. You have to make sacrifices. The NCAA basketball is flawed. A team with a losing record can get in if they just win their second chance tournament, which is stupid. It's a complete money grab. That's all. And if you want to say that's all this is, okay, that's fine. Do you blame ESPN for not wanting to show FSU getting demolished? And again, going back to the Ohio State thing, people keep bringing that up. Oh, Ohio State won with a third-string quarterback. That's right. But they also beat a good Wisconsin team 59-0 with said third-string quarterback.
And we said here, and we both agree, had Tate Rodemaker against Florida had a nice game, not even a huge game, a nice game, and Rodemaker looked like, wow, here's a quality quarterback. And Florida State is still capable of beating anyone because now this guy's a quarterback. Alabama will be out. Alabama will be out per the committee's own justifications. Alabama would not be in this field if Tate Rodemaker had proven to be a quality backup or Brock Glenn. So they had two shots, and the quarterback just didn't play well, and they're not in.
Here's one more piece of irony before I get to tell everybody about LinkedIn jobs. It's funny, the other day, first of all, I thought it was incredibly ironic that Jim Harbaugh, when he was interviewed yesterday, kept talking about, I want to thank our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and God, I'm a God-fearing man. I was like, dude, please, for the love of all things holy, spare me. Just give me a break on that. I mean, if you can believe what you want to, don't bring it into the college football playoffs for just a minute, especially a guy who just had to sit out the last 3 games. I would appreciate that. But secondly, Jim Harbaugh said, we're America's team. Maybe now maybe America will be cheering for him. I mean, because apparently everybody's got their hate on for Alabama. And so maybe we have made it where Michigan actually is America's team.
The ratings are going to be huge. I was thinking about this just today, Luke. The ratings, it's the Rose Bowl. They get big ratings regardless of who's playing. It's a holiday, which means it's January 1st, which means people are home. They're not out on the road. They're at home. People will tune in because it's the college football playoff, and then throw in Michigan with an enormous fan base, Alabama with an enormous fan base, and then you've got casual football fans who hate Michigan for cheating or evil Alabama for being there in the first place.
For being awesome.
You add all that up, the Nielsen number for this game is going to be huge. I'll go this far. I think it will be one of the most watched college football games of all time.
Wow. I hope you're right. And another thing that I hope you do, Jimmy, is when you need to hire somebody, you check out LinkedIn Jobs, because when you're hiring for your small business, you want to have many top-tier candidates as possible to interview. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. Hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats these days, and that is so very true, and might not have the time or resources to hire. Thankfully, LinkedIn, that makes the process intuitive, and it's also quick and easy. They even launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lifetonecollege. That's linkedin.com/lifetonecollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions, they're going to apply. All right, Jimmy, I want to talk a little bit. We're going to spend a lot of time on Michigan coming up. And next podcast, I want to go back over the SEC championship game. We need to talk about that more. That's the one thing that's a problem with having the CFP right after the championship games. You don't get a second to enjoy what you just accomplished, which was a big deal. And we need to talk about that more. So I apologize for not getting into that, but this has been such the huge topic we got to. But I think another thing we got to talk about is the transfer portal, and some monster names are in this mother now. Brock Vandergrift's in there from Georgia. Maybe that doesn't move the meter as much, but he was a 5-star quarterback and the number 1 quarterback in his signing class. Kyle McCord, a 5-star starter from Ohio State's in there. We knew about Cam Ward. There's Armani Goodwin. People may remember him from the AHSA. He signed with LSU. He's in there. Auburn's lost some wide receivers, which we expected because they're bringing in a good wide receiver class, like Malcolm Johnson Jr. By the way, I think it came down to Alabama and Auburn. He reclassified, if I remember right, to get and went to Auburn. It just never panned out. But they're everybody from Vanderbilt, it seems like, is transferring. I mean, literally everybody. I mean, what a good time to be playing Vanderbilt next year. So, I mean, our schedule is a Herculean task, but playing Vanderbilt as one of our road games is a big positive. So, a lot of movement in the transfer portal already, Jimmy. And, Alabama's not going to have anybody right now, probably. I bet everybody's going to want to go on this Rose Bowl trip at least. But they will have some transfers. You can bet your bottom dollar.
Yeah, there's no question. I mean, last year, 17 players left. Who knows what the number will be this year, but it's absurd to think it's going to be 0. I mean, it's not going to be 0. Might not be up to 17, might be more. I mean, no one really knows. But what we do know is as of, 2-3 o'clock on Monday, when we're recording this, no Alabama players entered the portal yet. And I agree with Luke that this is largely a reaction to Alabama being in the college football playoff, and the kids want to go on that trip. Let's say, for instance, you're the number 2 quarterback. I mean, you're a turned ankle away from being a quarterback in the playoff. Is now a good time to enter the portal? And wouldn't that apply to the number 2 player at every single position? You're a turned ankle away from playing in the playoff. So I think Alabama making it's going to delay some decisions, might even change some decisions. It's certainly going to push some kids off of getting in the portal now. You can get in the portal for 30 days. That ends January 2nd. But I believe there is a provision that says, hey, if you're competing in a bowl game, we're going to tack on 5 extra days for you. So I think for Alabama players, that date is January 7th, keeping in mind that the national championship game is January 8th. So you probably get 5 days from that date. So Alabama players will have time.
Wouldn't you get 5 days from the national championship? I would think your clock would
that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. Okay.
That's what I'm thinking, is that if Alabama is playing January 8th, Alabama's players would have until January 13th to enter the portal, because, I mean, that only makes sense, right? So that said, might Alabama lose some players to the portal even this week? Sure, that could happen. I would think it would be what I would call deep depth guys. In other words, guys that really just wouldn't be in the plans to play at all, even in case of injury. So we'll see. It's certainly something to monitor. But man, as college football fans, and we all are that are listening to this show, it is fascinating to see the big names from other schools get in the portal. I don't know if I've ever seen anything like it, but I've probably said that every time that this day happens. Gosh, the quarterbacks, Will Shepard from Vanderbilt, who I think is just one of the best receivers in the country, a receiver from FIU that I know is a great player, a receiver from Purdue that everybody's going to want. But the quarterbacks suck up a lot of the oxygen in the room. That's always going to be a huge story. And boy, there's some talented quarterbacks in that portal, and musical chairs. I mean, Dylan Gabriel not at Oklahoma next year. Kyle McCord not at Ohio State next year. Just fascinating stuff. And of course, Cam Ward seems to be the big prize out there.
Then just quickly wanted to run down some of these SEC bowl games, because there are, outside Alabama, Michigan, which is the bell cow, obviously. But you got Missouri, Ohio State. I think that's going to – man, what a golden opportunity for Missouri.
All those Ohio State players are in the portal. Ohio State kids have all left. They've gone to the portal.
This is a golden opportunity for them. And I'm huge Missouri guy for this one. Georgia, Florida State, we've already mentioned. I think Georgia's going to rumble. Now, if Carson Beck decides to come out, which I don't think he will, but if he were, that may change up things, especially if Brock Vandergrift's gone, who's the backup. The Peach Bowl, I just realized I might go to this. Ole Miss and Penn State, that's going to be fun, because I don't think that's going to be one where a lot of people sit out. Jackson Dart's coming back, so I think he will play. And then Drew Aller, the quarterback for Penn State, that's one of the better bowl matchups. And again, a golden opportunity for Ole Miss to finish 11-2.
That'd be crazy.
Wonderful. Yeah,
just to win over Penn State on a New Year's Bowl, big deal.
And then you get A&M. Boy, who are they playing? I don't even know. I don't know why this thing didn't show me who they're playing.
Is A&M playing Wisconsin?
No. Are they? They're playing – LSU's playing – no, Tennessee's playing Iowa. I know that. Well, dang it, where
Tennessee's going to win that game.
Well,
Tennessee's going to win that game.
Over-under is 9. And I'm taking the under by a long shot. All right, here we go. Auburn is in the Trans Perfect Music City Bowl, and I don't think Trans Perfect is what we think it is. I haven't looked it up yet, but it seems what an odd name.
Probably not. Yeah, it is oddly named. Now, I do think that that's a pretty good matchup. Auburn and Maryland. I'm interested to see it. Interested to see Talia Tagovailoa versus Auburn. Pretty good even matchup. It seems like I remember Maryland playing Auburn when I was a kid.
In 83 with Boomer Esiason.
Boomer Esiason was Maryland's quarterback, and both teams were very good.
Auburn had 3 running backs go over 100 yards that game.
Wow, you remember a lot more than I do, and you were younger than me.
I saw it today. I remember it earlier today.
I remember, I think it was in like the Tangerine Bowl.
No. It was in the regular season. That was back when people played some no kidding.
That wasn't a bowl game?
No, that was like Auburn played Texas and Maryland and maybe Miami or something that year.
That's right.
That's
right. Auburn played in a big bowl in '83 because they almost won the national championship. But yeah, I remember in Auburn, Michigan. That's right. I do remember, and they beat Michigan. I do remember Auburn playing Maryland in a really big game in '83, and I remember that Boomer Esiason was Maryland's quarterback at that time. So a little bit different Auburn-Maryland matchup this time around, but I'm interested. I like Maryland to win because Talia is a better quarterback than Thorne.
And I think it's a great name, the Trans Perfect Music City Bowl, because both teams identify as football teams. I mean, so yeah. I wanted to throw that out there. I don't even know if that's funny. It's probably not. Wisconsin LSU is the game, the ReliaQuest Bowl. God, I really hate it that we sponsor all this crap. Just call it the Outback. Well, not even the Outback Bowl. What would it be? The Tampa Bowl.
The New Year's Bowl game in Tampa.
True. Well, let me find this. I want to find the A&M game. Okay, Kentucky is playing Clemson. That's sneaky, not bad. Sneaky, not. A&M is actually playing Oklahoma State, and there's nothing I hate more than when they match A&M with old Big 12 teams because they've played so much. I'd rather A&M face off against somebody they haven't played in a while. You know, it's not a bad game.
I'll be more interested. As a message to all these coaching changes and stuff, I'm more interested in that A&M game if Mike Elko coaches it. And I realize that you can't put in a new offense and a new defense and the expectations should be low, but I'm only interested if Elko coaches that game. If A&M is going to play that game with an interim assistant coach from the last staff that's coaching this game while all their players are in the portal, I lose all interest. But if Elko's coaching it, I want to see A&M under Mike Elko, and I want to see it now.
Wouldn't they have to have an interim for the interim? Because the interim left for Syracuse.
Just left. He did. So they do need an interim for the interim. It's kind of like Dwight Schrute, assistant to the manager.
Assistant to the regional manager. You know, I'm going to tell you, this is why, and I, as a college football traditionalist, I love bowl games. I do. But we're very quickly getting to the point where, I mean, it's just going to be playoffs or not have them. And that's one thing that I do hate, but I think we're going to come to that eventually, or maybe we're going to have fewer, but I guess as long as the bowls have sponsors, they'll keep doing this, but maybe we could set it up. I mean, there have been some ideas, like instead of a bowl game, what if you say, all right, whoever you were going to play in the bowl, that's who you play the beginning of the next year at that location. That's not bad. It's stupid and it'll never happen, but it's not bad.
I mean, Alabama's been so fortunate to be in the playoffs so many times. This just hasn't really been a thing for us. But so I haven't really expended too much energy on it because it's not something that affects Alabama recently. But the way I look at it in terms of why I still like bowls is, you know, kind of like when we did play Michigan in 2019 or even Kansas State last year. To some extent, I'm excited about next year's players. I mean, like, hey, I hope we focus on the guys that are going to be in the starting lineup next year, and that keeps me really interested myself.
Before we go, one thing that just dawned on me. Would we have been better served last year if Bryce Young had sat the bowl out and Jalen Milroe had to play?
In retrospect,
I wouldn't have traded it.
But I'm glad we – yeah, I mean, the way I looked at it, because I was fired up about not being in the playoff, and I was all about that Kansas State game. I wanted to prove to no one, because no one buys this, but I wanted to prove that Alabama belonged in the playoff, and I think they did. I don't care that no one else did. I think they did. They destroyed the team that had just beaten TCU, and Alabama destroyed that team and proved that they were, in fact, one of the best four teams. So I liked it, but I get exactly what you're saying. And as everyone now sees, I hope, that Jalen Milroe's struggles early on was largely due to a lack of experience. And getting him more experience earlier, no doubt, would have helped him in his development.
That's going to do it for today's Locked On Bama. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow, and we're going to talk about the SEC championship game. We promise. This has been dominating, and so we got to roll with the punches, y'all. Until then, roll tide, everybody.
Roll tide.